It's got to do it. It's got to be it. Okay, I think I'm live. I've had some technical difficulties, but can anybody see me or hear me? Okay, there's somebody. Can you hear me also? I've had some technical difficulties getting on here, so I'm starting to panic a little bit, but I'm here now if you can hear me. What's up, Amy? What's up, Cryptoville? Joyce Hartman, what's happening? Appreciate everybody who's come here. Sorry I was a few minutes late here. I was having the internet, it was messing with me, and then my computer started trying to reboot and a bunch of other stuff. So I apologize for being a couple minutes late. But this live, I'll give everybody a second to check in here, and I'm going to really endeavor this time to make this a shorter live. I said that last time, and it went almost 4 hours. This is not going to be one this long, so I'm trying to maybe go an hour. I've got some things I want to really just knock out in that pattern, and then I'll kind of get in the chat and see what everybody has to say, try to catch up and get some input on this. And I think it's just something really good to talk about, and we're going to tackle from several different aspects. And this is just, my understanding and my knowledge and my experience of such. So it doesn't mean it's all knowing, but it's my interpretation. I'll share it with you, and we'll see if it, gels with some of you, or you might have other things to add or your own experiences, but I can just kind of tell you how I come to be about this and where this plays into my life and stuff. So let me look in the chat real quick and see who else here. Mike Jones, what's up? Cosmic Joe, thank you for coming. Urso, thank you for coming. Bubba, thank you for coming. Mike Jones. Always, every time I see a name, I can't help but think about that, man. I like that song. That brother had some good cuts too. Damien, thank you for coming. Man, very cool. Very cool. There's a few people here, more people than the other time. So I appreciate that. Thanks everybody who come. Please put a subscribe on there. I have this dream that one day I'm gonna reach 14,000 subscribers. It's never been that important. My whole deal was if I ever made it to 2,000, I was gonna get off YouTube. And I got to 2,000 real quick, and then PC wanted to keep doing those videos and just keep going. And that's before I got shadow banned. But now, so just getting 14,000, it may not be a whole lot. So that's not very many. To me, it's a lot. It's hard earned, and I think half of those are probably real people. I don't know about these subscribers and all that. Anyway, it's interesting. It's an interesting deal. I think that a lot of people are buying subscribers and buying views, and they're not telling people. And look at how their views don't match their subscriber count. And there's a whole bunch of tail signs of that. People that are doing that, I think. But it's a generation where we're getting our energy interlocked with the computers and through the biorhythms, through the algorithms, getting likes and all things like that. It starts entwining us, and in the same way to do the cutting things too, to try to cut into somebody's energy field. So, all right. Well, I'm about to get started here. I think we got a few people here. I thought maybe Jessica might come too. She might be out in the field though, or she might be here. Let me see. I'm gonna go up. It's one thing about the chat that it moves so fast. Aaron, thank you for coming. Oh, very cool. Intermystic 144. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the comment on the audio too. I appreciate it. Cool. Right on. Oh. Okay, there it is. It clicked off accidentally. Mike Lowry. That first Bad Boys was pretty good. I got to be honest with you, Amy. It was the second one. I didn't think it was as good. You know what I mean? It's not. Maybe it's partially because they're just older now, but I didn't think the second Bad Boys, or was it the third? I didn't like either of those as much as the first one. But that first one, yeah, Mike Lowry. Anyway, okay. Message somebody here. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, let's just start, everybody. Okay. Like I said, I really appreciate everybody coming. All right. It's always a good vibe in here, good chat. And some people from Jessica's group that have come, some people that from other groups I've been a part of are starting to come together. And it's been brought to my attention that a lot more people are watching these lives than what I perceive. It's just because they're not in the chat room doesn't mean they're not watching. And it's starting to run into people where they're saying, hey, I was watching this live you're doing. And so that's really cool. So I thank everybody. All right. Now let's go ahead and knock out this topic. All right. And it's going to go boom, boom. I'm going to try to make this succinct and quicker than ever. And it's more about, instead of me doing a whole lot of elaborating and elucidation, it's more about me giving you the information so you can do your own research and go from there with it. All right. For me, this thing with Energyzoa, or cosmic critters, as they're also called, it started with Wilhelm Reich. And I took an interest in sapobions, which are the ones he was making from sand packets and like egg whites and things like that. And then they start deteriorating and the decaying process. And he called these sapobions. And he was noticing that they had like a magnetic effect on some negative cells and negative cultures and things. So that was pretty interesting. And that's the bion experiments. And I've got some pictures, everybody. I've got several pictures, and I don't know what time I'll start showing them, but we'll I'll tackle them one at a time. It's not a whole lot of pictures this time, thank God. Anyway, I was really very interested in Wilhelm Reich's research. And like I said, the sapobions and all his bion experiments and his whole theory of orgone and how it actually is from the orgasm and the life energy and connecting that to really what, it's called prana too. When we start dealing with Kriya Yoga and things, so prana and also chi, these are all the same, this life energy. So I found his whole thing with orgone boxes and all that orgone accumulators, very fascinating. And they weren't hard to make. And I had a gentleman that I had met, two dudes actually, Brian and Rick. They were from the science center that was in my city, but they like used to build stuff, and I paid them like $50 to build me one of these cow busters, and that was years ago. And they're not not that hard, but and what got me into the cloud busters was actually a book I had read, and around it was, gosh, it must be probably 91 or so, and it was called we'll actually show you a picture of that one. We'll just go. That's the first picture I'll show and try to navigate my way through this. I think I'm getting a bit better. All right. Boom. All right. This book right here, The Cosmic Pulse of Life. And I had ordered that from the Borderland Sciences Museum. Anybody's familiar with them? But there was whole Borderline Sciences. They had a book book company too, or they released you could order books. But that's where I had gotten this. And this is the work of Trevor James Constable. And he was following the work of Wilhelm Reich, but he had some cloud busters he was making. And also he had compared this type of life energy to the UFOs. And look, I know that to be true through my own experiences. So I got very interested in this guy's research and what he was doing and the type of cloud buster he was actually showing, okay, or actually building. There's several different types. One called a bazooka, another called, Trail One. Here, I'll show a picture of one of them here, just so we're on the same boat and everybody knows where I'm at with this. Yeah, I think I'm getting a little bit better with this. Here you go. That's Trevor James Constable. And what he had did, that's one of his designs, right? He had several different cloudbuster models he had made, like a bazooka one and different ones, some that were on top of attached to the car, and just different models he had made. Some that were more basic, like the ones I had my friends make. Them just basically these copper tubes going into orgone box, then going grounded into a water source. But he had done a lot of work on weather engineering that was much more simplistic than anyone would think. It was with using these devices. And when I had gotten done out of my after my accident, when I was starting to still convalescent at home, I had actually started looking him up, and he had started a website. He was really old, and he was trying to really give people copies of all this research he had that the Navy was using. And he quite ingenious. His work was quite ingenious. Okay. See, and I'll go to one more picture of him, and then we'll move on just a little bit. But I just want everybody to get an idea for what I'm talking about. And I think this picture I'm about to show here is the one that he called the bazooka, actually. No, this is the Magnum 144 is what this one's called. And it was one of his stronger models. So yeah, that's so I took an interest in cloud busting. And this is for two reasons, all right? One is it can be done with technology like this, but also once you learn really what it's actually a looking technique technically, but one that can be used to still the eyes. But this light radiation from the eyes can actually dissipate clouds. And then you can pull the orgone, the life energy into you. But people can only do a few of them. Those of you that have actually done that, cloud busting with the eyes. Okay, but anyway, this is one, these devices that he was using to manipulate weather to a degree. And I thought it was just really cool. So I had my friends make some. And then I was actually had two, and one of them was real little, and one of them was nothing like this. But they're similar in terms of just they have the pipes, but they were just little copper pipes, more primitive than this. And I had started busting nimbus clouds after a while. And after busting the nimbus clouds, I actually wasn't I wasn't feeling good after a while. And it turns out when I get further into this research of Constable, all right, I come up on that they start talking about DOR, which is deadly orgone radiation, and that is similar to like negatively charged life energy, negative charged orgone. All right. And that's what actually holds the clouds together, the nimbus clouds, what gives them that dark almost texture beyond, just dust and stuff like that. But actually that DOR. Okay. And these devices, these cloud busters, if you don't filter them correctly, which I wasn't that advanced yet, y'all cut me some break. Now I was a teenager, all right? It's like 1990. So these machines were collecting DOR. Then I took the next step, okay, which was Constable and others were talking about these critters, these quote unquote cosmic critters that are also called Energyzoa now in kind of newer age term deal. But these critters that actually fed on DOR. And back then, I took a Polaroid and a Kodak, and you just infrared film, took some pictures with an ultraviolet filter. I took pictures around this cloud buster, and I could see these things around, these little things that look to me, they look like amoebas to me or something. Okay. And now I know that's these things, they feed on that DOR. And I know there's a big controversy, is DOR, is that loose, that word. Yeah. But I prefer deadly orgone radiation because I think it takes it kind of to another level. But you've got these beings that feed on that, as well as generate negative thoughts within us, so they can feed on that and the morphogenic field of that and start using our own third eye as a wormhole. And then they start manifesting more problems out here and more manifestations in the third dimension coming through us in almost a poltergeist type of a fashion. So that's something to be aware of. All right. Anyway, when dealing with these critters, and let's take let's take a look at a picture or two of that. Okay, like have Constable had, just so everybody gets an idea. And when I saw, to me, they look like um, things like amoebas, microcellular, one cellular organisms. Okay, so sorry. Let's see. This is a picture of one around one of his cloudbusters. And that's one of the, this is one of the different ones right here that's got the actually the copper tubes. You can see them down there. But that's one of these things, okay? And I saw stuff somewhat similar, but to me, when I look at them on the pictures, they looked more like almost amoeba to me, amoeba-like. So this is one type of these critters that we have. All right, now um, I've been asked several times, Barry, do you think these are, the word now, of course, for negative inorganic beings is archons. Everything archon. Do I think they're archons? And I'm going to be honest, I don't know. Okay, I don't know what their conscious level is, but to me, they look more like microorganisms or micro one cellular organisms to me, like amoeba and things similar to that, than they do actually quote unquote demonic form. And when you see them on those pictures, sometimes they look more like if you were looking at pond scum. And when you see when under a microscope you look at pond scum, you see a lot of different one cellular organisms there. Here's another one. Okay, this is one that he calls this one Alpha 1. All right. Oh, sorry. Messed that up. Here we go. Still doing light years better than I was with this. Kind of proud of that, to be honest. Okay. Here, this is another one. This is one that's from Cosmic Pulse of Life, that book. All right, and he's saying the same thing, that these appear to be, micro, almost one cellular organisms. And I had seen similar around this cloudbuster for whatever reason on infrared film with the ultraviolet filter. You could pick those up on a camera, and I started seeing other things too, like things that look like these weird UFO craft, but they weren't around the cloudbuster, but they were around the power lines that were close to the cloudbuster. You know what I'm saying? I just found that really odd. And he starts making mentioning of that too. And he called the metal craft that he saw that were attracted to the cloudbuster, he called them the Etherians. And I find it interesting because I think that my friend Jessica had just did a show with my other friend, Jock Doubleday. I was on this show recently. Cool cat. But they were talking, I think their entire conversation was regarding the ether. But these being in those craft that are coming around the DOR and other things, he was calling the Etherians. And they may be negative. That's the opinion I get, okay? If they're messing with the DOR, there's something negative going on there. So anyway, that's just one of those organisms that he showed from that book. And I want to take this into something else while we're on it, all right? And that's I want to talk about this real quick, and we're just going to blend this in because I believe it very much is similar. Here we go. Let's include these two, these rods that are seen. Now, I've got a couple of pictures of rods, but I want to just kind of limit it to this one, all right? Because I think it's a good one. The rods that are seen, and they're caught with camera quite a bit, and it seems like that's another one of those creatures that are these beings that we see more through our peripheral vision. The peripheral is really in black and white. You think it's not, but it really is. And that's why we see spirits through the peripheral so much more commonly. Okay. So when we start dealing with these rods, and what I think they are. Okay, I think. God, I can't believe I'm getting this. Is so much better. I'm kind of proud a little bit. What I believe these rods actually are, and why I'm bringing this up. Okay, I believe that they are similar to flagella. Okay, and when you start looking at just the flagellum, look at, I mean, look at it. Doesn't it look kind of like a rod? So I think we're dealing with another type of these organisms, these organisms that are plasma based, that exist just a frequency off of us, that feed on life energy, or is just like within our own atmosphere, the same way the microorganisms are in pond scum, but they're in our atmosphere on this planet. Okay, so I just want to make the little connection between rods and what I think are flagella. Doesn't mean it's definitely correct, but it's definitely food for thought. All right. Here is another really good book by James Constable that also influenced me a lot. I want to make sure I show you that one also. And then I'll do my normal chattering nonstop and we'll knock everything out. But I think it's important for everybody to see these pictures. Okay, this is another book by Constable. A friend never gave me my copy of this one back, but it's really, really good. And it's again dealing with how some of these UFOs are organic and how they're living beings. All right. And since we're talking about that, I'm just going to incorporate this in right now, because later I want to really just touch on chemtrails just a little bit. And, separate of that, but kind of in a similar concept, is angel hair. And I actually have done a video on that. And angel hair always caught my attention for two reasons. One is when you first started seeing reports of angel hair, it was always connected with UFOs, like back in the 60s, that the UFOs were emitting this or producing this somehow. Now, when we start going into these living UFO aspect that I've talked about a lot, not just here, he's talking about more, they're talking more about what I'm referring to, these amoebas and these critters here. Okay, but when we start dealing with these sentient craft that I've mentioned that are housing other beings for interdimensional universal travel and things like that, some of those living craft, okay, produce something that is similar to what we would call angel hair. And when I say that, everybody, check out what, like the silkworm does here on Earth, the silkworm and spiders, but we have living creatures, space organisms, that sometimes will produce some type of a byproduct that is this angel hair. So that's just something I want to bring up. All right. And I tell you, I get a lot of my information comes from the star beings. They're the ones I get. I've been on board those craft. I've been blasted with so much information that it took years to decipher it all. Okay. From every deal, every contact. And I'm one of those brothers, I'm full of questions. I don't care what nobody else says. When you're really on board one of these craft, it's mind blowing. When you're around beings that are non-humans, it's elating, but it's also mind blowing, and it's a bit. To me, it's frightful to a degree, because you don't know what if they're demonic. That's what happened to Carla Turner. You know what I mean? That's not what happened to me, but what if? Because that is a factor. But then I start getting all this information to all my questions, and I can't even formulate them to ask the individual. And then you got to do it telepathically on top of that. And so they're just steps ahead of you. At least me. I'm just a person, y'all. All right. But anyway, when dealing with these sky creatures and living UFOs, I just want to tie angel hair into that. And when you start looking up really the analysis that's been done on angel hair, okay, they have a lot of boron, magnesium, calcium, silicone, and some type of an unknown red rust. Okay, and I just, those things I find interesting. And see a whole lot of analysis on them, because one problem is the angel hair evaporates very quickly once it's obtained. So anyway, I just wanted to just kind of tie that in, but tie into also how we have some of these beings that are throughout our atmosphere, but they're also in space also. Okay, and that will take us into another type of quote unquote cosmic critter, and I call them space remoras. And when I talk about this, they're beings that start growing on these craft, the organic ones. The way remora rides the shark. You know, there's an there's an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation that where this being they cut open this space. It's like a space organism of some type, and it almost look like a space whale or something. But they cut it open, and the child emerges, and it attaches to the Enterprise and starts imprinting on the Enterprise and sucking energy from it. All right, but I think when dealing, you have these space remoras are quite similar. When I say that, think about the type of bacteria that starts naturally accumulating on like the windows of the space station or of the shuttles. They've talked about these space bacteria that do that. And a lot of these, let me tell you folks, I've said it for a long time, a lot of these space bacteria, just because it's on the micro pico level, are sentient as a collective conscious level. We don't know what we're dealing with. Okay? So anyway, that's another book by James Trevor Constable worth checking out. All right. Okay. When dealing with, of course, another type of these quote unquote critters, and when dealing with these others like the Alpha One and all that, the ones that look more like amoebas, do I think they're archons? Like I said, I don't know. All right. But I will say there's another category of negative inorganic being that is maybe fits in this parameters a little bit too. And that's the shadows. Okay. I've talked about the shadow beings a lot. And the ones that I first started seeing were the little spherical ones. I could see them out of my peripheral, but then I started being able to track them. And then the others that were more oval, okay? And I've said how before, I don't want to go too much into repetitive stuff, but how one attacked my coworker when I worked this bowling alley in high school and in college. I worked this bowling alley like 3 nights a week, and they were all bowling, and when we get off, they could bowl. And the bartender was bowling, and I watched this larger shadow go down, and I watched it, and it attached to her crown chakra and elongated down to around the sex chakra. And it started like pulsing, okay? And it went from being this black shadow looking thing to a weird gray, staticky, almost looked like the gray, like static on a TV type thing almost. And then she's just bowling. I said, well, she looked like turkey. Can't remember if a turkey was 3 strikes straight or is it 5. Either way, I guarantee you, man, this woman got she got a turkey. I guarantee you. I remember it flashing up there. And I come down and I say, hey, you all right? And she's looking at me. She's oh, Barry, I don't know. It's just everybody calls me B. He said, B, I don't know. I think it's just the stinking thinking is getting to me. Her exact words, the stinking thinking. And I knew then, I said, this thing is manifesting negative thoughts on her, and it's feeding. It was very obvious. But let me tell you, it was creepy. Creepy to see that, because, I was still on a level where, to a degree, within our concrete jungles, we think that we don't have a lot of predators, but we do. Okay, and so that's just one example. And I think those are more like minion soldiers. Okay, and there's others that Carlos Castaneda had called the Flyers. And somebody that had introduced me to his books in high school, just a freshman, I read through all Carlos's stuff. But I saw a flyer, okay? And what they are, they're a bigger shadow. They're more elongated, and they hurl through the air. That's what it appears like. And they make these thuds, or they just make thuds, and like a deep static to them also. That's these flyers. And I saw a cat that I really appreciate his work, Jerry Marzinski. He's the one that talks about the voices. And I saw him he was making a correlation between the flyers and the voices. He thinks that the flyers are the ones that are doing the voices on people. At least one of the factions that are doing it. And I thought that was very interesting, so that's another type of shadow being again. And then we've got another I want to do too. I've got a picture, but y'all don't need to see the picture. You know who I'm talking about. The Hat Man, the Hood Man. Okay. I myself have seen the Hat Man. When I was much younger, I saw this individual walking around a stoplight at the end of my street. A cat in a black trench coat with a black hat, and they seem to have almost long hair. When I see that thing on, I really don't like those movies, but it's the thing that comes out of the field and it throws the things at the kids on the bus. I'm sorry, y'all. I should know the name of that. It's some type of demonic deal, but it kind of reminded me of the way that thing, when it's walking around, it kind of looked like that. It didn't do nothing to me, but it generated apprehension. It generated fear. And generated, what the hell? Who is that? So that's the Hat Man. I had seen that. And then you've got the Hood Man. And you've also got, who's the other one? I think that's most of them. Anyway, yeah, that's most of them. Anyway, point being, Heidi Hollis has done a lot of work on the Hat Man and on the Hood Man too. And I want to really give her some props. She's communicated once or twice with me on Facebook through Messenger, and she's done some really good work. She puts a turn on it. It's got a religious affiliation, her interpretation of it. That's fine, to each their own, but when she does, she's putting them in the classification of demons. And, let me tell you, I don't disagree with that. I just don't, because I think, look, folks, this planet, when I look around on this planet, the natural ecosystems of this planet are predatorial. And it's foolish for us to think that the universe is not predatorial when it comes to awareness and consciousness. So that's something to just be very aware of. That's why we have to be prepared for some of these things when we leave the body, and prepared for, you know what I mean? It goes to that event, not just for the mind of God and how we cannot lose our life memories, but how we can avoid some of these organisms that will come for your awareness. And I hear people, they all these the battles, they battle this and that. And they might be, I don't know. But let me tell you, if you get one of those demonic presences that's billions of years old comes up on you, you're in trouble. And you're in for the struggle of your life. What happens when you do all your protections and that thing is on you? Boom, that was good. It didn't work. Now what? I'm taking you. What happens? What do you do? That's real serious. So my advice is this: pick your battles well, all right? Pick your battles well. And sometimes the best way to fight is don't be there. Get those things out of your aura, out of your biofield, away from you, learn their tactics, and deal with that. So that's the other type. And that's when we use the word archons, it's those type of beings, I think, are even almost more that, maybe more than just the amoeba type ones. I could be wrong, everybody, all right? I don't know. But it just seems to me that the more shadows and those type of beings. I mentioned before a book that was, I thought, really good when dealing with the dark faction, the demonic faction. It was a book by the poet P.D. Ouspensky called Talks with the Devil. And on that, they talk about talking with this demonic force that said it's billions of years old. And the stuff that it was saying about, quote unquote, the garden, and about, quote unquote, Adam and Eve, who, if you've looked at the videos I've done, I believe on the Sumerian tablets that is Enki and his wife and Enlil and that whole thing. I believe that's Adam and Eve, and that's based on what they say about Adam and Eve in this book here, the Uranta, okay? And there's a chapter in there, Adam and Eve, okay? And I've done a video on this. Anybody go look that up? It's in book reviews. But what they say about Adam and Eve, calling them the biological uplifters of the planet, that are material sons and daughter of around galactic center, architectural sphere, that are sent to planets that are at that point of evolution naturally. And then they come and do a biological uplifting. and I've said how I think in the Sumerian tablets, they're showing, they say in that book how they had to go through this training before they could take over the stewardship of the planet and things. And I think that's what you're seeing Inky going through in the Sumerian tablets. And I've said before, the waterfall coming off his head when he's on those steps and it's got all those fish in it. I think that's supposed to be, I don't want to get in trouble on my channel, but quote unquote sperm, but that's what it's the biological uplifter. That's what that is. And then it talks in that book also when Adam and Eve fell and how so many women were brought to Adam to keep this Adamic plasm going before it totally burned out. And they gave like a number of how many thousands of women were brought to him. It's like 1,400 and something. There's a specific number they give in there. And on those Sumerian tablets, you've got one where Inky is being brought like this woman, and these cats are giants. The woman is like right, kind of like here. And it's like kind of presenting him to Inky. And then in the back of that is this cat on these test tubes, squatting down, some sort of giant squatting down on something looks like a test tube with levers. All right, they're showing you right there what they're saying in that book. Y'all all know I got a problem with the Uranta book, parts of it, but you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Stuff like that I think is valid. Anyway, back to this material because this is not going to be a 4-hour deal here. All right, okay. Something else I want to throw in, another type, okay, of these cosmic critters or these organic craft that I think is very, very worthy of mentioning is, hold on, somebody do like a drum roll for me, man. That's what I need. A brother needs a drum roll. By the time it's done, I would already have it up. Anyway, I want to talk about this too. Okay, the NASA tether incident. I should say incident. Oh gosh, that's not one of the better pictures I had of that. I apologize, everybody. But y'all know what it is, okay? It's that tether that came loose in whatever year it was, and around it, you started seeing these things that look like these balls. Okay, these ball things going around, almost swarming around it, and they look very much organic. And there's a gentleman that wrote a really good book, and it was his name was Louis Franks, and he had talked about that he has something called the cosmic ball theory, how these cosmic balls came in here basically with panspermia on them, and that's what caused part of the evolution here on this planet. But anyway, when dealing with this, why I'm bringing up this NASA tether is because to me, those look very much almost like a type of almost like water eggs or something. And what that made me wonder, because the Nomo said they were going to come back. When you start talking about the doggone, and when you really start looking what they said about that ship, how it came down, and it went down into the water immediately. But as it came down, all of this water started coming out of the mountains, rushing down into this valley. Check out what Credo Mudua talks about when he talks about the Nomo and what he as an elder had held, or the story he was told concerning them. Anyway, so I was watching this thinking, could this possibly be either the Nomo or some other type of aquatic creatures? For those of you that really like Star Trek, in Star Trek Enterprise, that didn't do very good, but it wasn't a bad show. They had towards the end the species that were attacking Earth called the Xindi, and the Xindi had like several different planets in their solar system, and they had like different types of Xindi on, I think, one planet, or is it two? But anyway, they had the avians, they had like the ape ones, and then they had the aquatics. And the way they kind of presented the aquatics was fascinating in terms of the way that how their ships were, but also that how they couldn't come to decision because they were like, it was just fascinating. And then the way they showed these aquatics looking, I thought was quite interesting also. That Star Trek Enterprise, towards the end, the Xindi, Xindi. So, when we start dealing with that, and also not to mention those that are mer people, what type of ships do they have? And so that's another type of cosmic critter or creature I want to bring up, which is possible aquatic the vessels of aquatic species. And when we think about it, some of them may be on the micro level too. Don't mean they're all going to be ships we can see big like that. I've long since told people to be very aware when you ever seen what looks like glitter coming out of the water or glitter hanging around the water. That may very well be what we could call a UFO swarm. Just because it's on the micro or small like that, don't underestimate what you might be seeing. And this here, again, this part, as far as the NASA tether thing, this picture in particular, look at it, looks kind of like an amoeba. It looks like a nucleus in the middle. So we're dealing with these beings that, deal with plasma, life energy. Boom, I'm back. Okay. All right, folks. Something else I'll bring up real quick, okay? When dealing with some of these beings that are on the micro level, I've talked a lot about Judy K. King and her whole ISIS thesis thing and lambda-phage and things like that, all right? And when we start dealing with the biomes and things like that and cellular regeneration, I kind of would tie that into, there's another book that I haven't talked about a lot, but it's called Body Electric. Oh gosh, what's the name of that cat? There's two cats. Anyway, Body Electric. And what it deals with, though, is actually the attention of regenerating human limbs. Some of it through sound frequencies and other ways, but also like the science right now that's taking things like the different frogs that can regrow limbs and different creatures that can, and seeing if that can be activated in humans. And that's Body Electric. That's, fascinating. And I think that's where science is really going to go when it comes to the ablation of viruses. Okay. Another one I'll bring up too is the euglena. I've always been attracted to that microorganism. The euglena is a freshwater being that is a microorganism that actually has both plant and animal characteristics. It also has like chloroplast that it uses for photosynthesis, but it's in the animal category as well. And I think when we start dealing with the regenerative ability of those beings that can use light like that, like the euglena, and the regeneration of our bodies is the next step, really, as opposed to just straight cryogenics and things like that, and activating things like our phage lambda and the things that Judy thinks that the pharaohs are trying to do, changing the lambda phage. I'm sorry, lambda phage, lambda phage, changing into what they call, I believe, the misogenic cycle, which is to where when it does gene replication, it attacks a cell, it actually injects its code into that cell, and that cell reproduces that. It would reproduce the lambda phage, which has got a light component to it. And that's changing. And, and I've mentioned before that when it comes to these organic craft, the ones you see going into the earth, and we start dealing with the deep biosphere of this earth. Okay, in the deep biosphere, we have over 95% of Earth's undiscovered bacterial and fungal components. And that takes us into something called dark microbial matter. That's what's down there. We going into melon, huh? But seriously, I also have a proposal that I think that in the inside of a black hole of a Mako is not the Boggs ice, or the boson, like they're saying, Biggs boson in the middle of the black hole. I'm saying that wrong, excuse me, but I'll keep going. I think it's actually dark microbial matter, and I think that's what really is taking the whole panspermia thing to different. I did a video on that privately before I actually got to meet Rudy Shields, and so one of the things that got him to contact me was that video, and several of those astrophysicists, his friends, passed that video around. So I find that interesting. No one will probably ever hear about it. But anyway, just keeping that on. And something else I want to throw in too, and I don't want to say actually what this is inside, but it's something called the vulgaris parasite. Everybody look that up. The Hydra vulgaris parasite. And that lady, Carrie Mage, was saying that in that thing that a lot of people had taken underneath the microscope at about 500x, you can see Hydra vulgaris parasite in there, along with self-assembling nanotechnology. Okay, and you know what creeps me out when looking at that Hydra vulgaris parasite? I and a lot of people, I guarantee you in the chat right now that can see, have seen something similar to that on people that are attacking people. And I mentioned before this client that I had that I'm looking over at them. They've got this thing. It looks like these 4 flaps, and there's this hair. It looked kind of like the salt vampire from Star Trek, but there were these 4 flaps. It was absolutely terrifying because once you see it, I mean, I'm sorry, you can't just unsee it. I tried. I couldn't unsee it. Everybody said, "Did you battle it?" Hell no. I was there. It was a past life regression. I wasn't there to battle demon. And you got to pick your battles right, very carefully. And this thing was so entwined in this person's energy field that I think it would take a team of people to get it off. Okay? An exorcist, a priest, a shaman. I think it would take a few different people to get that thing off them and out of their energy field. Each person with a lot of strength. You see, these things come, and these things that come out of these portals, we don't know where some of these other portals, where their entry aperture is. We only know that the exit aperture is here. And we don't know what these beings are coming through these things, and they're attacking people. You know, it's no coincidence that you get these places that have these dimensional rifts, these time rifts. You know, that's why a lot of places are haunted. It's also a time distortion, amongst other things. And you get these creatures that come through, you know, and they hang out around those places. Anyway, so let's not go any further with that. But that's another type of Energyzoa. Okay, we talked about the space remoras. You know, I'd heard somebody once mention the space remoras, and it's that lady, Penny Bradley. I try to kind of reach out and say, hey, I think you're right on that. I've had experience, and I didn't. A lot of those people don't want to deal with me, apparently. So I never heard much back from it, and then she never seemed to get my messages, I guess. So I don't know, but what she says about that is correct. So it's things like that. I'm more interested in the similarities that we have in contactees than us all being right and wrong. It's not about that, because we all have different experiences. And you're going to hear me pushing that more and more now, is the not right and wrong, because we have different experiences. Unless it's getting people trapped here as earthbound spirits, and I'll speak up about that. But otherwise, it's not about being right or wrong. Okay, another type, the cosmic plasma worms. Okay, there are these plasma worms that have been seen. Now, I do have a picture on that of one of those. I think. Oh, I do. Hold on, I have to get it up. There's one. And a lot of these were actually seen in Mexico. And I think they may still be being spotted quite a bit. Things like this. And these worms, and they look like plasma worms to me. And there was a bunch of them being seen like in Mexico and Mexico City. That was some time ago. And there was a gentleman by the name of Arturo Robles. And he was taking like videos of this and pictures and everything. And he put a bunch of it out. Then he got attacked. He had one that was really this morphing UFO looking thing. I got that on bookmark. It's still available. It's just incredible morphing UFO, and it's similar. Like when I saw a UFO morph, it kind of looked similar in some ways. So I think it was very real. But this TV show put out this thing. It said, "Oh, that Robles guy is a fake because those are Mylar balloons," and that suddenly just discredited this film he had. And when you look at this film, and the comparison with these Mylar balloons that people saying it were, I mean, it doesn't fly at all. And suddenly he got discredited because of that. I mean, it's obvious, not the same thing, but people see what they want to see. But there are a lot of these things being photographed, okay? And they're also called plasma worms, because that's what they look like to me also. But that's another type of these critters that exist in the ether, in just out of sync with us a little bit, that are more organisms that are capable of spacefaring, as well as in our atmosphere, like the same way amoeba and one cellular organisms are in pond scum. I believe that's in our atmosphere. Okay, so that's another one of those I wanted to bring up. The cosmic plasma worms. And that's something I haven't spoken on a lot this time, is actually about the fungal component too, and how we have spores, mycelium connected, and that are capable of galactic travel also, because they're impervious to solar radiation. So that's a whole nother thing going. Cosmic radiation, impervious to cosmic radiation, and that's something where it took me in the work of Terrence McKenna and Rupert Sheldrake. They were the only people talking about that and making a connection between space organisms space UFOs and mushrooms and fungal. And believe me, when I came forward in 2014, I got roasted by some people for that until NASA started coming out with what they were using the mycelium component. A lot of y'all know that already. So anyway, wow, I think that's about it. Okay, one last thing, and then I'll go to the chat. We'll talk for just a second before I shut her down. I think I'm doing good. I don't want to. I'm saying that I don't want to look at the time and it says like 3 hours. So if it has been, just let me live in my delusion. All right, it could be critical to bring me out of my delusion all at once if it's been 2 or 3 hours. Anyway, chemtrails. Okay, and I just want to just touch on this because there's some things involved with chemtrails that I think that they're doing that is aiding this, and it's part of this whole taking over and this subtle war that we're in right now. All right, and this chemtrail thing, and what I brought up before is when I first saw this, I saw some analysis of chemtrails from, there was like some, I don't know, it was a university or somewhere, they did these chemtrail analysis, and also Dr. Blair had analysis done, and he was connected to that also. So I'd seen him actually, the analysis himself, and I'd seen Dr. Blair talking about it. And Dr. Blair I thought was great. It's a shame. I think had he lived a little bit longer, that's somebody I would have liked to have met. I think we could have chopped it up for hours. Anyway, did a video too, Dr. Blair and myself, certain things about his contact experiences that I think were comparable to mine, that I think we could have meshed it up, or was it chopped it up real good. Anyway, okay, so these, and the thing about those results, I can't find them anymore on the internet. I can't find that deal where Dr. Blair was talking about them. Okay, but I took notes from back then, so I did even a video on it, and I didn't put the video out till probably a year ago because I forgot to put pictures of cryptosporidium on the first, and that to me just ruins a video if I mention something that wasn't in succinct with the pictures. Everything I'm talking about is succinct, so if you're into doing your own research, you might like that. You know what I mean? If you don't, if you just want to just repeat what somebody else is saying, you're not gonna like my channel. Anyway, okay, as far as the chemtrails, all right, and some of this, like two things that were in there, but also connected to that movie, What in the World Are They Spraying? And that's high amounts of barium and aluminum, excuse me, or as my English friend says, aluminium. Anyway, high amounts of that, okay? And like I said, that for that movie, What in the World Are They Spraying, you have reference to that. Now, these other analysis I had saw, okay, and I'll say these things, and I'll even maybe spell them out for you, but I'm not going to go over each one of them and what they are. You can look it up and look at how they affect the human nervous system, and also especially breathing and respiratory. Anyway, okay, so that not just barium and aluminum, but also manure. Okay, cryptosporidium. They also had non-human T cells. The hell's that? Non-human T cells. Also, fungal meningitis. Okay, forensic pseudomonas. Okay, and also, this is one I'll have to spell out for you because I can't pronounce it. Pneumococcal meningitis. Pneumococcal. And also they had found quantum dots inside. Okay, so that inside of the chemtrails. I mean, what the hell kind of soup is that? What kind of soup is that? And it's no coincidence that those chemtrails seem to get sprayed more one part of the year when it results of everybody going to pharmaceuticals for drugs, for antibiotics and all these other things. So anyway, that's just, I want to just tie that in with the chemtrails because it's a real problem right now with us breathing that stuff, and that they have actually self-assembling nanosensors, self-assembling semiconductors that we can inhale, get through our food, and then they can be activated remotely. Okay, that's a great way to engineer dreams on somebody. And that's really where this stuff is going. I've said this before again and again, that they're giving this the dream engineered, aka targeted dream incubation, to where they're turning dreams into memories and those memories into reality. And those people are not going to know the difference. They're going to say they're going to think it's as real as can be, because it will be for them. Okay, that's why I say there's not a wrong and right about this. It's only trying to understand and what they're doing, how they're ruining people's lives for that. And we've all been exposed to that. And I would imagine, when we get down to what's, it's technically an anti-echo chamber, but I think they call it anechoic room. But anyway, it's the room that produces no sounds in and out. It's got the most silent room type of thing. Now, when you start dealing with that non-linear junction detection equipment and scanning people inside one of those anti-echo rooms, boom, that's how you isolate if that's what's coming out of their bodies. There should be nothing in there. Okay, but I think that's where, I've seen things, people giving money for conferences, and that's doing things about popularity, but it's calling it disclosure. But why don't they get one of those rooms made? Why don't they get with my Nexus and have a room and have that type of technology, the scanning done in there for all these people that are targeted people, so that they can start initiating a cognitive law, neurocognitive law. We don't really have one. I've talked about this before. Okay, and right now I'm like insect buzzing around the cider. Okay, I ain't going much closer because I'm not trying to get zapped either. You know what I mean? But I've talked about this a lot, and that's real disclosure there. And people that are making that word disclosure need to be teaming up and helping people that are being tortured in their life through these system and these programs. It's not about getting up there on the stage and talking about it. It's about getting their sanity back, getting their rights back, and stopping this from happening to everybody. Okay, they're experimenting. There's no law against this right now. These frequencies and all this neuroprogramming going on, I think it's creepy. All right. So anyway, and like I said, I'm not judging, but it's a real problem. People are being assaulted with that. And the word targeted individual, that's real. I've met a bunch of them, but there's different ways people are being targeted. These different programs, this different dark stuff. It's a trip. And I could say that just through the work that I've done. And some of the other people that aren't even connected to the SSP thing, quote unquote. Know what I mean? But they're people that something happened to them in some type of a program, people messing with them because they're lifetime contactees, generational contactees, and all sorts of stuff like that going on. So I acknowledge that fully. Now, that's it. That's it. That's it. Okay, to the chat. Now I'm looking at the time. Oh, not bad. An hour and 6 minutes. Not bad. Okay, I don't know who else here, but I'm going to go back in the chat quite a bit. Just try to get caught up a little. Again, I appreciate everybody being here, listening to my rambling. But that's the main stuff. I wanted to tell you about the type of Energyzoa space, quote unquote, cosmic critters. And yeah, that's most of it there. In fact, that is all of it. Kind of proud of that. All right. Okay. Bigfoot Dwarf, what's up, man? Thanks for coming. Brandon Tiger Man, thank you for coming. Jessica, there you are. What's up? Thank you for coming. I think I'm getting quicker here, Jones. I'm doing a little bit better. I look kind of proud, you know. Not like say, I think I'll leave out here with a big chip on my shoulder. I got my pictures up successful. Yeah, that's that's a big step for humanity over here. Anyway, Brandon, I'm glad you're here too. Thanks for coming, man. Bernard Fox, thank you for coming. So I was trying to see that I acknowledge everybody. Rosie, Thistle Artworks, thank you for coming. Appreciate everybody being here. Okay, I'll start from there. Forensics board. That's way out of my league there. Always the balloons. Yeah, they really don't. And Arturo Robles, he disappeared after that. I didn't see any more stuff from him or anything. They just discredited him and everything he was showing. And they were also calling those cosmic plasma worms. They're also calling them some type of EBEN, also EBEN, right? Yeah. And it's stuff like that kind of I'll take and just correlate real quick with that lady that communicated with me a little bit, Gladys Cordova. And she's got that place in Peru, GCE Peru. And I gave Jessica that as a blind target because that mountain is so interesting to me. One is the individual she has as the unknown man walking down that mountain. Okay, the other, she's got the giants on there. And she's also got these different beings that sometimes she calls them just beings from unknown origin. But you'll see them what must be coming out of these portals or something. But some of them look like dryer sheets, literally like dryer sheets or sheets of paper floating around. And then suddenly they'll turn into a bird and take off. You'll see it. She's got a bunch of stuff like that. So just another thing, that's Gladys Cordova, GCE Peru. And just the stuff that Jessica got data-wise from that whole area, I thought was quite interesting. So and actually Gladys had seen that video and reached out. She's like, thank you for promoting my work and everything. I was like, hey, no problem. So it's pretty cool. A little bit language about barrier there, but the Google thing, the translator helped me out. Ursa supervisor bullshit. That's no Mylar balloon. You must know what I'm talking about. Yeah, you must know what I'm talking about. And I'll try to remember. Oh, something else I wanted to say. Everybody, a lot of people that commented last week and on my last two videos, I got swamped and I didn't get to comment back. I was not trying to ditch anybody, and I'm trying to really comment to everybody that takes time to watch and comment on my video. But I failed last week. So if you're somebody I didn't comment back on, I'll still try to go back and get everybody. I apologize. It was not personal, and I'm not trying to dupe anybody at all. So I will try to get back, and I appreciate everybody taking time to try to break that weird algorithm I'm on. Anyway, Urso, yeah, that it was no Mylar balloons at all. I mean, that stuff, and I don't see where they got that. They tried to make it kind of morph him a little, and it didn't look like nothing like what he had at all. That was flipping and turning these lights and looked like it was morphing. He got a lot of really good things on his stuff. Arturo Robles, but he just disappeared after that, to my knowledge, anyway. So Steve Wolf, what's happening, man? Thanks for coming. We all have different experiences and point of views on many things, definitely. Invisible creatures, slips. Bunch of bats outside. Amy, you ever notice on the Lost Boys movie, which I think is one of the best vampire movies, the Lost Boys movie, they when you hear them like flying coming in, they got the bat sound on them. I thought it was interesting for back then to put that little detail in there. Syphilis was big. I think we know who to avoid. Yeah, yeah. When dealing with these chemtrails, that's connected to Morgellons too. The Morgellons is coming from those chemtrails also. And what an odd disease that is, with the little, what is it, the strips that it does, and it's horrible. There's people I feel that deal with that, but that's chem related. That's chemtrail related. What's up, Jessica? Chemtrails do suck. Dr. Delbert Blair, yeah, he was the man. There were some connections with him. Dr. Blair would be another reason that I had given Jessica the remote view of Alpha Centauri. I want to know what she saw on the exoplanets there that are within the habitable zone. Because Dr. Blair had said that he went to conference for George. I never say the word right, and people get mad at me, of course. Adamski, whatever. Anyway, it was one of his deals. I've always respected his work because of one of the craft he saw underneath looks similar to what I've seen. So I thought he had some reality there. And then on top of that, he saw these Nordics in these tight ass blue uniforms or whatever, and I've seen similar. So that's just I thought he was interesting. But he went to anyway. Dr. Blair went to a conference for him, and he got approached by these two brothers that were telepaths, and they said they were from Alpha Centauri. And yeah, and that went on for this is one of the really cool things, because I had heard about him for years, but not until after I had come forward did I find out he was a contactee. I thought he was just dealt with all the different elixirs and all that stuff and was a genius biochemical wise. I didn't know he was a contactee. So, but now that I do. What about them jellyfish UFO things? That's going to go into that's going to go in the same realm of what we were talking about here when it comes to like the critters. Okay. And that's, you've got life forms. Those are life forms, organic craft, organic, some beings that are spacefaring beings. Okay. And so that goes in there. That's why we went through all these different types of critters here. Okay. So that would include those that appear to be jellyfish like, those appear to be amoeba like, those appear to be microorganisms. Okay. When I say microorganisms, that's incorrect. Excuse me for that. One cellular organisms. Then we went through the flagella too, how they appear to be rods. Actually, rods and flagella, I think, are connected as well. So you're dealing again with these life forms, all right, that can be used for space travel. And we have to start looking at the type of space fungus there are, the type of space bacteria there are, all that stuff that's been recorded that they've got now, that needs to be really, really looked at deeply. And I mentioned before, there are others. And from that other, there's another galaxy. It's like the largest galaxy I think they found. It's a large amount of dark energy and dark matter in that galaxy. But I've talked about the pine cone type of spacecraft. Actually, they're not craft, they're more organisms that come from a planet that's similar to the way Euclides of Saturn's moon ejects that debris that they think might even be contributing to the rings. Okay, you've got a planet out there in a different galaxy that's ejecting that, but ejecting these things are almost like, we could say they're similar to pine cones. and the way that they contain the mechanism that opens when they get close to solar radiation and stars and close for intergalactic travel when they're not. That is the type of there, but these different spacefaring beings that can be used symbiotically with some species to be craft or transport. It's really important, I think. And when we start looking at our planet and the organic factor and the connection there, again, the symbiotic connection between the trees and the mushroom is a prime example. That whole network system. And that goes all the way down to the uniform of some of these beings, like those Andromeda I've shown you with the blue uniforms on with the racing stripes. Some type of what we would call similar to fiber optic technology, connecting them with the ship and the nervous system. It's all connected, you know? So anyway. So good question on that, Andrew. Haven't seen many chemtrails with government shutdown. At least that's my observation. That's interesting, Chris. It's really interesting. It's really interesting. I wonder why. Butler Bar. I think guys having a really good pitcher plants. Tamara, greetings. Thank you for coming. Pitcher plants. You know, there was a there was a Star Trek Voyager where they have this huge holographic like pitcher plant. But you know, when dealing with similar to the euglena, in that the euglena is actually, although it's a microorganism, but it actually converts. It uses chloroplast for photosynthesis. Excuse me, and also it's got it's got animal characteristics also. And when you start looking at actually the plant kingdom, you've only got a couple plants that fit that. One would be the pitcher plant, and the other would be the Venus flytrap. And is there one other? I think those are only two, I think. Anyway, but they go in they cross over also because they've got that same thing. You know what on Doctor Who they called the crinoid, and the planet where the crinoid evolved, the plants eat the vegetation ate the animals, and so that's a repeated scientific or science fiction type of theme. And you know, I've heard some of these now, quote unquote, whistleblowers that have done everything on Earth. They've experienced everything, they've seen everything, they have done it all. And now they're they're hanging with pitcher plants, aggressive ones like that they're talking about. It sounds just like an episode of Doctor Who I've watched. I mean, the story they're saying was almost identical. I was like, did you steal that stuff from Doctor Who? But not my business. I stay at all that. Okay. But sometimes people want more fantasy than reality, so I respect that. Whatever. Anyway. Sorry, that's where pitcher plants took us. Nanotech and chemtrails. Yes. Self-assembling nanotech. And you go to picotech also. Amy, yeah, meningitis attacks the brain. And it was two types of meningitis in the chemtrails. One is the fungal meningitis, and the other that, oh gosh, hear that word again, damn it. Phenomechanical or phenomechanical, mnemonical, I don't know. PHENUMOCOCCAL. Anyway, but yeah, but all that, you know, and that's and you know what's with the non-human T cells. I always found that really disturbing, you know, mixing there with manure. I don't know what kind of concoction that is, but yeah, you're right. It attacks the brain and also the respiratory system. Oh wow, you in a bubble wrap? Oh man, like that movie with what's that lady that died? Tani Katan. She was like with that guy that was in the bubble thing. The Tomorrow People ship looked like a mushroom. Tamara, you must be watching the new one. I watched those. Couldn't get into them as much as I could the old one, and there were things that they were throwing in that new one that, and it was cool, but they were kind of trying to make it like more into an X-Men type of thing. Like you've got the one lady, she would scream. She could only teleport when she was screaming. That's something that's kind of like a Jean Grey, or not Jean Grey. There's an X-Men that does that. They're factoring that in. And the original Tomorrow People, they all had kind of comparable abilities at different power levels, though. And something about the original Tomorrow People that I was tripping out on, because I was watching one of the ones last weekend, it's the Galactic Federation. They just kept talking about that, and there's an ambassador coming, and they just kept going on and on about that. And I was finally like, wow, that was like 1976. Excuse me, or 77. Don't get me wrong, the new one's cool. It was cool. It was all right. But just kind of the old one just had a little flavor to it for me that I liked. But, probably checking out both of them would be cool. There's certain ones that just I resonated with when I was young. That was one. Tomorrow People was one. Doctor Who was one. Under the Mountain was one. The Phoenix with Judson Scott. I kind of resonated with that one a bit, especially when he would talk about how his civilization had harnessed the power from the sun, like beyond a Type 1 civilization. Trying to think of another really good show. Of course, I like Buck Rogers. Is a fan of that one. Always science fiction. I kind of gravitated a little more towards that than most things. Of course, the Trek. The original Trek was about all there was back then. It took a while for the next generation to grow on me, because at first I couldn't have. So I was tripped out on Picard. I was like, man, that cat's from Excalibur, and then you had Riker, aka Kirk. I don't know what that was all about, but it took a minute, but it grew on me eventually. Anyway, nanotech being in chemtrails. Yeah, you've got the nanodots, and you've got the biosensors, and also the semiconductors. That stuff's been found in those also, along with those quantum dots. And when you start looking at where they're going with the quantum dot technology now, they're starting to put that over craft. Things like these TRX3B or whatever. Craft like that, they're putting just a ton of quantum dot cover over them, so they're invisible. And I've heard about that a lot. And there's other metamaterials they have also that are capable of invisibility, but I know they're using the quantum dots as a new one that they're using that too. Steve Will, Brandon, I'm just an imperfect human. I hear you, aren't we all? But we need to be more Borg-like. They're always trying to attain perfection, right? The movie Barracuda. Oh, can't say if I remember that one. I'm getting it confused with Piranha. Piranha 1, 2, and 3. Those are terrible movies. Piranha. Anyway. Yeah. Oh. Andrew, is that with Charles Bronson? Charles Bronson. I was a Bronson fan, man. Oh, man. Those Death Wish movies were fantastic. I was watching one the other day. I think it was Death Wish 3. Came on AMC at like 4 in the morning, all right? And that's the one where he's like, he's going on, he's setting those thugs up. He's like, one of them, he's sitting on the bus, and he's got a paper like that. And when the criminals walk up, he's looking at him like that. Did they kind of flex on him? He goes like this. But then all of a sudden, boom, boom, he blew right. I mean, he just smoked these cats, man. Leon Isaac Kennedy, he blew him away. He shot him in the back. Or the one when he walks out and the cats are trying to rip off the car, but they can't get it. And he walks out, he's like, hey, guys, what's with the car? And they said, hey, what's your problem? MF, yada, yada. He looked at him. It's my car. He just blew him away. or maybe when he walks out of the supermarket in the worst part of town, and he's got that super expensive camera, and he's just swinging it around like that. And all the criminals are looking at him, all laughing. They go up to mug him. He just blows them all away. I mean, that's the death wish. What was his name? Paul Kersey. Is that what it was? Paul Kersey, the vigilante? Okay, don't y'all get me started on the movies. But I like a lot of his movies. I thought Bronson was pretty good. He was even in the Twilight Zone. Him and Elizabeth Montgomery, Bewitched. They're in the episode. They've got that new guy now that looks a lot like Charles Bronson, like Charles Branson or something they call him. It's kind of a trip how much he looks like Charles Bronson. But the first one of those deals where you think, is that a doppelganger? But I don't think so. But they look a lot alike. Anyway. Patents on flicker rates of video. I don't know what that one is. Did you wear Cabbage Patch Dolls clothes? Do you remember Cabbage Patch? Aside all the stuff we talked about, does anybody remember the Saturday Night Live where Eddie Murphy was playing Mr. Robinson and he had on the Christmas outfit and he had this doll and he pulled it was headless and he took a head of lettuce and stuck it on there and he starts saying, they're the Cabbage Patch Dolls. And the landlord started begging, Robinson, somebody sold my daughter a doll with a head of lettuce on it. Anyway, just thoughts. Oh, Barracuda, Andrew. Barracuda was a movie that started off with fish at the beginning and wound up government science, government group something fish. Okay, I do remember that one. Yeah, they had a couple of them in the tank or something, right? Yeah. Another one of those deals. Okay, I do remember that one. Yeah. I want to say that's not the one with Cloris Leachman in it. No, she was that the Flying Sharks? No, that was the Lake Placid with Cloris Leachman. But I do remember that Barracuda. That wasn't a bad movie, actually. Sci-fi deal. I remember when rap came out. Me too. It was the first ones. It was like, man, who was it? Houdini, Curtis Blow, Roxanne Shante, UTFO. UTFO was really one of the first ones. Yeah, I remember that quite well. Whole different thing. Hey, Intermystic, thank you. I appreciate you being here. Tamara, neurocognitive law. Yes, we need lawyers for this. Agreed. I've said it before. It's good for people to write into your county commissioner. Say you're requesting, the rights of your neurocognitive rights, and get that set up. And then when you start doing that type of scanning and stuff, that nonlinear junction detection technology, a whole nother thing. They can start tracing those frequencies and really it'll all end in the court in that way, which I think is really important. Bigfoot Dwarf, thank you for being here, man. Amy, thank you. Oh, thanks, Tamara. Appreciate that. Hey, thank you, Brandon Tiger, man. Appreciate your support. Gladys got giants in Peru. Yeah, Bigfoot Dwarf. She's fascinating. That man walking down the unknown man walking down this deal. One is I kind of think he was a giant. And that kind of reminded me one of the Nordics I've seen. I don't know why, it just does. So she told me, she said, he telepathically was communicating with me. And I said, well, what did he say? And she messaged me back, well, nothing really interesting. That's all she said. It was kind of weird. She's really nice though, you know what I mean? But I was like, nothing interesting, but yeah. Flying snuggle dryer sheet aliens. Interesting. Seriously, look at some of the footage that she has. I'm not kidding around on that. Some of them look like pieces of paper and other like flipping around and in the wind, and other look like dryer sheets. And in some of those, you'll see them turning into birds or birds turning into them. And sometimes they seem to go in and out of these little black portals on that mountain. Yeah, I mean, she's got tons of stuff. Look at the ones, especially because he calls them what? EIODs. EIOD for unknown being of unknown origin, but she calls like EIODs or something. She calls them. But yeah, check that out. Now, all her stuff is very interesting. You know, Peru's always been a hot spot. Very cool. I'm almost caught up, y'all. Oh, it's my favorite too, Barry. Sorry, Amy, can't remember which one we were talking about there. Um, oh, cool. Oh, Morgellons. Oh, probably Morgellons. Yeah, yeah, that Morgellons, man. That is, boy. You know, I did a video over that too, and I can't. There were some things about that specifically was very alarming to me, and I did a video. It's called Morgellons. Black-eyed children. I don't know, but it's got Morgellons in the title, and it'll be on there. It might even be on the negative inorganic being playlist. Oh wow, cool. Steve Wolf loved George Aminsky. Let's never say his work, but Adamski's work. Me too. I thought it was pretty cool. And like I said, there was just some similarities in what he experienced that made me really kind of question. Barry, are you familiar with the story of the politician in the Caribbean who witnessed a Nordic alien taking a nap? No, I haven't heard that one. A Sin of Phoenix. I think that's Susan. I think. No, I haven't heard about that one. Thanks, Joyce. I try. Greeting, Rita. Thank you for coming. I haven't seen you for a while either, Rita. Thanks for being here. Their planet is just like ours, Barry. Whose planet, Amy? Lots of fourth dimensional energy then. They say black holes eject energy from somewhere, not proven but theorized. Actually, black holes, it's white holes that eject energy. So that's the exit aperture of a black hole is the white hole. Okay. And when it comes to the black hole themselves, they actually intake. Okay, the gravitational waves and everything intakes through, but that takes us into actually the Mako. And again, I don't want to talk too much about that because I've said it a billion times, but it's the work of Dr. Shields that he did actually on through the observatories. He calls them Makos, magnetically eternally collapsing objects. Okay, and what they do is they actually, and in the way that they do, they are bright, so they're emitting that makes them bright. Okay, but as far as the intake, you've got what creates a copy on the surface of all the, and in this case it's going to be universal filaments that go through it also. It creates a copy of the surface, a perfect copy that's called the quantum hologram, and that wraps around the Mako itself of the black hole, the magnetically eternally collapsing object. The Mako itself is the mechanism that holds the information. So that's why, in that way, the black holes are the hard drives of the universe. And what I can also say, and this is something I've taught, when the universe is not a closed system, so as it expands constantly, it's also, according to the second law of thermodynamics, generating entropy. And I believe a lot of times this entropy will go through these makos and wormholes too, maybe with a different structure, and then exiting into creating other universes and other parallel realities. that are outside of our space-time continuum. And you know what's interesting about this book goes on about there being seven super universes. Like ours, they call Orbiton something, and they describe how big that is, our local universe. But then there's other six ones that they describe in here, which all makes up the grand universe, all seven. But I think it's interesting because when you start going into bubble theory, you'll find there's a lot more than that. And when dealing with other contactees, including myself, that maybe have seen another universe, they can look like one I saw looked like little broken shards of glass. And I've had clients describe some looking like that too, and others looking like bubbles, others looking like fluidity, almost pockets of space that are fluidity, kind of like species 8472 on Voyager. They're supposed to be for fluidic space. I think it's somewhat similar to that. All right. Anyway, going on down, wrapping up. Aussie Sue, what's up? Good to see you. I haven't seen you around in a while. Thank you for coming. Jellyfish, yeah. Yeah, that's becoming more common now with I think with the one they released. Seems like those are just become the released footage. They're becoming more common now. But you know, when looking at just straight organisms that might exist within the ether, within just a vibration off from us, that's one of them. You know, so you got them. You've got the ones that appear to be more of a plasma. You know, Ernest J. Thank you for being a long time listener. Thank you for coming. Definitely, Amy. Yeah. The whole mycelium network, the tree network, it's a true internet of the planet. And if you're a biological organism, as in spacecraft, that's going to be the first thing you communicate when you come to this planet. The same way, the symbiotic mushroom and tree operate. So the connection between trees and organic UFO is very, very serious and should not be underestimated at all. I've seen those clouds that last for years. And YOLO X. Ah, is that Yolanda? Is that my friend Yolanda from New Orleans? Oh, thank you for being here. I don't know if that's you, but if that's you, I was thinking about you the other day. Thank you for being here. If that's, yeah, YOLO. That might be my friend from. That was an interesting place. You know, that place in New Orleans, I got a lot of Sasquatch stuff happen to me down there. I mean, I wound up going, I even had some stuff that was like obviously put up. If you remember, in the back of that property, there was a tree that had fallen through that like building back there. Like little, I don't know what it was, a storage house or whatever, but a tree had fallen and was around in there. I kept picking up like skunk ape type stuff. And I've never been to New Orleans, and that was about 45 miles outside of New Orleans, that little plantation that the conference is being held on. So it was very interesting, you know, plantation. I'm calling it that. I don't know what it felt that way to me. Don't care much for that area. Anyway, oh, very cool. So cool many people are here. I appreciate everybody coming. Trying to give everybody a shout out. MPW333, thank you for coming. Hello to you as well. They say blackberry brambles catch sheep, whether wool, the sheep dies and the plant benefits from the nutrients. Oh, that's interesting. I never heard that. Wow. Wouldn't doubt it though. Memory triggering. That's cool. See, that's what it's all about. You all communicating with each other, awakening each other, memories. That's really cool. I witnessed a huge gray rectangular treetops. No one else seemed to see it. I don't know. Maybe that was one with the quantum dots on it. Steve. I used to follow her. I love Tani. She was in my music videos too. She was in pretty good movies, man. Those '80s movies, definitely. The Cabbage Patch weren't out when I was born either. So I wonder how many grandparents had them. I wish I didn't know that now. I'm not going to sleep tonight again. You know, when it comes to that again, I'll bring up again. I've made this representation concerning the Cabbage Patch dolls, and what they had was called the Garbage Pail Kids, and it was a big deal over because they were the nuclear survivor fallout kids that survived the nuclear holocaust. And there was like these gruesome cards, kind of, and it caused quite a big hubble about that. But you know, when I look at the black-eyed children, which that subject's starting to come up again all of a sudden, but I had predicted years ago when I first came forward, I didn't think that was a thing that was going to last because I thought they were a warning system. I think those kids come from some type of a timeline where they've seen actually nuclear holocaust. I think that's where their eyes are black. I think that's why when people get too close to them, especially the few that said they touched one, get sick. What sounds like radiation sickness to me, quite a bit. Okay, just little things like that is I think doesn't fully account for them asking to come in like vampires, but the other parts of it, them being a warning system and how they elicit that fear and that scary deal. I think it's maybe Earth trying to give us a warning. I really do. Anyway, that's my opinion only. Like I said, don't mean me be right, but me be thinking. Peoples of Earth. I don't think I saw that one. Amy, I'm sorry for those comments. I don't make any sense. I'm sorry, Amy. I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't taken anything like that. Not at all. Talk it up, my friend. You're fine. Steve, it was in the outback Queensland, wide open country, hardly trees, just flat landscape. You know, it's interesting, Aussie Sue. When I was in Melbourne, you know, I was it seemed almost as opposed to being outback like, it seemed almost tropical to me. Very close. I mean, all the parrots and everything with blue parrots, pink parrots, white parrots. It's a trip to go through an intersection and see a bunch of parrots all over the street lights instead of like where I live. It's crows or um, I guess y'all got magpies there. I saw a lot of magpies there, but we like crow where I live or blackbirds, you know. But there you got parrots, there's groups of parrots all around. I thought that made it rather tropical there. At least the part I was in anyway, around Berwick and Nary Warrid. Anyway. What's up, Damien? Thank you for coming. Chris, Barry, I'm glad your recent appearance on the Cryptid Hunters shared this site. I'm new here and hearing all you say. Thank you for being here, Chris, and thank you for coming and welcome to the channel, my friend. Please check out the playlist. There's a lot of stuff on there. You might see some stuff that you like. Sadly, a lot of my videos won't come up unless you look at the playlist. It's part of that shadow banning thing. Somebody said a Mantid event. I've had a lot of clients lately that have had Mantid interactions, like 3 or 4 different ones. Alpha Centauri. Oh yeah. That's if Amy, if you go back to the view list or playlist, remote viewing shows with Jessica, all the ones we've done are on there, and there's one the one of Alpha Centauri's on there. I've actually had Jessica look at several exoplanets that were within habitable zones. Alpha Centauri, Trappist One, um, Tau Ceti. Uh, what was the other one? Was it Cassiopeia? and also the brown dwarf planets and the trans-Neptunian objects just outside of Pluto. Make, and Sedna. I think she looked at both of those too. All very interesting data on those. You've saying been to Inner Earth and other planets. Right on. Ah, Allison, welcome. Thanks for coming. I just saw your thing on there. Welcome for being here, my friend from the Conscious Life Expo. Wow. That was a weird place, man. I've done a lot of conferences, and that was just one of the coolest ones I've done. You know, not just coming from another near-death experience, but meeting Daniel Brinkling there, Linda Moulton Howe, Mary Rodwell, Nick Pope. Actually, Nick Pope, I met him in Vegas. I think that was Vegas. But anyway, just meeting that was really a cool deal. That deal. The great Mr. Carson was there, but he walked right by me and acted like he didn't see me, which he might not have, you know, because obviously there's so many other black men in this whole thing that, you know, you don't recognize another black man when he's right there by you. But hey, whatever, not my thing, you know. It is what it is. I'm not popular enough to get some people's attention, and I don't mind that at all. Aaron Landrum, thank you. Very quick. Oh, thank you. Leah, thank you for being here. God, that's a real compliment. Thank you for that, because you have no idea how far it is, and I can even get a picture up there. Oh boy, I'm still suffering from PTSD from doing a 2-hour live where no one can hear me. That still is in my mind. It's like right there, yo. I think I have a negative identity from it. Tamara, the Rosen Bridge. Right on. Trigger memories. Mm-hmm. Interesting statement. I'm not a super soldier. I'm just an abductee in a different program, but some of us come back. There are different programs. There are a lot of different ones. You know, and I've had it's a trip, yeah, to where we can't classify them like, you know, everything super soldier, SSP, because they're different ones. And some of it's according to what abilities you have too. And I think also what group you're interacting with. And it may not be specifically just bloodline related, you know? Amy 411. Interesting. Wow, that's interesting. It was kind of weird. I kind of noticed something weird too, but I did notice something weird. I ain't gonna lie to you. Like and Claw, thank you for being here. You know, all of you that are saying that Arkeem triggers memories. You know, that is, you gotta understand too. We're dealing with a hive mind concept, brain to brain interfaces, brain to computer interfaces that are way beyond, that's inducing engineered dreams, targeted dream incubation. Okay, I've said it just earlier, turning dreams into memories and those memories into reality, and people not knowing the difference. That going down, them doing that type of bioprogramming, neuroprogramming, and downloading these conscious memories into digital twin cyborgs that they're using to cyborg or to terraform other places like Mars. And that results in people like I've dealt with, clients that are telling me there's two me. There's two me. There's me here, but then there's this other me that's a super soldier, this other me that flies spaceships, this other me that has hybrid children, this other me and all that stuff. Okay? That other me is what's being put in that digital twin. And that digital twin population, cyborg population, is obviously going to be enslaved to a degree. And I think that takes us forward into things like what Jessica saw on Series. That's another one she looked at. And also on TRAPPIST-1. That was probably the worst, the slavery concept. What William Tompkins has said about slavery in this galaxy. What Tony Rodriguez has said about slavery in this galaxy. So it's things like that, you know, that keeps coming up in that way. So when saying that, you know, that you're hearing things, him triggering memories, I believe y'all. But I think really you need to look at the concept of, are you in a hive mind? Are you being exposed to neuroprogramming that makes all these, and they're still doing it. So these memories are still coming up. They're still evolving. People are, I'm having more experiences. And I say that based on how similar all these experiences are, especially concerning Montauk. Okay. And I've been watching. All right. But man, when dealing with really, you start really studying neuroprogramming and what they're doing with it and how it's at this advanced level right now, that needs to be really isolated. Any of you people that are having that, Arkeem included, if you're having memories he's triggering, you need to get scanned. My Nexus is doing clinics around the country now. They're starting to move around. Check out when they're doing the clinics. Yeah, the scans are a little expensive, but it's necessary because you need to find out, are you emitting these frequencies and is that connected to your experiences? You know what I mean? I mean, that's heavy, and that's really where it's at right now, because something needs to be stopped about that. Because what they're doing is they're using that to rewrite the entire narrative of the contact scenario, to rewrite the entire narrative of us becoming a type 1 civilization. That is what they're doing. Okay? And it's real serious because it's at an advanced state right now. And I'm going to tell you straight up, all right, this ain't going to be popular, but I've experienced it too many times now with clients. These dark forces are using SSP as screen memories for real abductions. And I've broken through several of them now with several different clients. They're using that whole hive mind SSP thing to really cover what they're really doing, what beings are really doing it. And these screen memories, and I've had these screen memories, they throw them during sessions. They throw screen memories during sessions. I've had it several times. I have ways to get around it, ways to get through it. But it's not that easy always, okay? And I feel fearful for those people that go through certain hypnotists and they're not really going through screen memories. They're just going with whatever fantasy maybe comes through, maybe whatever things the person wants to be true because they heard somebody else talking about it and then it triggered them. I'm not putting that down, but that's a hive mind symptom, okay? Or when I hear people saying, well, I had a dream about this and that. We were part of the disclosure. And then the other person, oh, I had that same dream too. Hey, I had that too. Hey, you were in that dream. So were you. That's hive mind stuff. That's dream engineering. It's real. It's in a way advanced state. If you're a fan of the movies, I talk about the movie Dreamscape all the time. And I'm pretty sure in that movie, Max von Sydow, a.k.a. Ming, the Merciless, was supposed to be actually Ingo Swann. I think he's supposed to be Ingo Swann. And when you read Penetration and watch that movie, you'll probably figure out why I think that. Anyway, anything else, folks, before I get out? Let's see. Oh, boy. That's pretty fantasy-oriented there. Greetings, Lycan Claw. Sorry, but I'm almost there. I'm at 417. I'm getting there. Almost there. Oh, somebody's here that I didn't see. Who was that? Was it Boondock? Thank you for being here if I didn't already acknowledge you. Monique, thank you for being here. Oh, thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. Monique, I think that's how you pronounce it, right? Or is it Monique? So anyway, thank you though. I appreciate you being here. Hey Barry, have you ever heard of people being injected with something that changes their DNA slightly? Yeah, I had mentioned the stuff they're putting in everybody. I don't want to say the word because probably get more trouble, and I'm already in for that. But the stuff that they're putting in people, I'd seen recently a discussion by Carrie Mage, and she was saying that under 500x from certain companies that were doing that have that under like 500x, you can see something called Hydra vulgaris parasite, and also self-assembling nanotechnology. Okay, and all that can be used to rewrite DNA to a degree or hijack it. So yeah, definitely. And I think also the rewriting of RNA too, and messing with RNA, they're doing that too. What a cool chat. I'm not replying to everything because you guys are talking really cool, talking amongst yourselves. Monique, I referenced your research on MACOs and the quantum hologram impression I've done in multidimensional bodies. Thank you. I really appreciate that. You might also find it interesting. I recently did a video. Maybe was it a live last week? But I talked about the assemblage point, um, and how the universe actually flows through the assemblage point, and that's the world we assemble. So you might like that one too. Thank you, Monique. I appreciate that. Rita Mills. I hope we get to meet you one day, Barry. I'm in Florida, so probably won't. Yeah, I've done what two conferences in Florida? One, um, two. I've done one in Orlando, and I did one in Cocoa Beach just after COVID. I did one in Cocoa Beach, so I've been there twice. I gotta tell you, my friend, that humidity there, my God, I thought I was dehydrated before I got out of the Uber after the airport, man. I got to the airport and I was already dehydrated. That humidity, and everybody said, well, the state you're from doesn't get real hot. We see 3 digits all the time in my state, but it's not that humidity with it. It's just like a dry heat. That humidity up there, you could cut that stuff with a knife. But I guess you get used to it after a certain amount of time. Kind of like the first humans on Krypton, right? They said they had to crawl. Oh, the beings from Cassiopeia. I can tell you that some of the species from Cassiopeia are insectoid, and I know that there's a being named Xandar Yandar I've dealt with, and although its origin is from somewhere around Abell 2256, ABELL 2256, but they've got colonies or something in Cassiopeia as well. And I think also you've got another species that's on the purple spectrum concerning soul groups, more that indigo violet section, but more purple. And I think there's the whole thing, the purple, I think the planet is purple, the beings, their soul group, everything. So that's another Cassiopeia thing. But I know there's an insectoid factions there too that are probably connected to that alliance I deal with. But we don't hear about Cassiopeia a lot. And the one that you're mentioning there is that rogue planet. I picked up information that was feline beings there. And I know it's so popular now. All of a sudden, I don't know where this started, But all of a sudden, it's like all feline species now come from Lyra. And I've got a book around here somewhere that all this started the whole Lyra thing. I don't know, just like kind of all the aquatics all of a sudden came from Sirius. It's not true. When the beings have dealt with me, very rarely have they used these type of names for space. They use weird names like sectors. They talk about sectors of space and give numbers with it. And I didn't understand fully what it meant, but I think when looking at certain ancient cave paintings, especially the ones in France, that they're showing us actually the Mako themselves and beings coming like from the Mako. And like you see like the handprints and stuff like that near a Mako. You see animals coming through it. Okay, I think that's what you're seeing is star maps. And when you start looking at some of those caves, and the ones in Australia too, they look like almost these weird grays with the two eyes and the little nose in the middle, but they look like there's some type of graves or some type of beings like that. Look into that, and you might see actually compare it to colliding black holes and how massive black holes collide and the ways those are illustrated. They look a whole lot like those what we think are beings. I think we're looking at star maps. Those hands. I think so. The hand near the Mako, and then the beings coming out, then the extraterrestrials. I think you're looking at that's the hand of God nebula, maybe. And then you've got what you've got is some type of a Stargate there, a Mako close to there, and you've got beings that are coming through using that. Okay, so that's when dealing and observing some of those ancient cave paintings. Chips in his head from Dark Fleet and Solar Warden. Well, isn't it time to get those removed and to prove that's true? We're at that point now. You know what I mean? To where it's not as much about people relaying their experiences and it's about taking action. Okay. And there's places where that can be removed now. My Nexus is one of those people. They're removing implants. They're not just scanning for them, they're removing them. Okay. So this is one thing I just would say anybody that thinks they're suffering from that or having this program type of stuff, get scanned. Find out, get that stuff removed, get those implants removed, then take it to the courts. You know what I mean? Or otherwise, it's never going to stop. We can talk about it all we want, and that brings it to light, but that's not a solution. We're at a point we have a solution because it's killing people and ruining people's lives. I'm seeing several people in here talking about it right now and talking about how their lives have been ruined by this stuff. That's as real as it gets, I think. Yeah, I was told. I hate to say this, but I still challenge them able to trap souls and put souls anywhere. I just challenged it because I've had too much work I've done now and not encountered it. Now, once you get here, they can do all sorts of stuff to you. In fact, just before you incarnate into this body. But once you actually join with your superconscious, unless you choose to be an earthbound spirit and not go into the progression because you've been told not to or for whatever reason, okay, then at that point, then they can do all sorts of stuff to you. But when you are actually your real self, we're not these weak creatures that's been put out like, oh, they can just put our soul here, put their soul there, do this. And I know because I've dealt with some regressions where they're trying to fracture somebody's soul and put their soul into other clone bodies and other dimensions, 5 of them to be exact. And they couldn't do it. They can't do it. There's this thing, unless our superconscious, divine over self's thought adjuster, whatever he wants to call it, agrees to be a part of that, it doesn't happen. And that's the bottom line. I've experienced it over and over again. Now, trust me, when I come against a client and it's different, I'll let all y'all know. So, their super conscious, that part that's still in perfection with God, was overpowered by these beings. It was taken by these beings. It was put into a mechanism by these beings. I will let you know. And that super conscious couldn't stop it at all. I'll let you know when I encounter that. But really what that's doing is creating an auto-suggestion that depowers us, depowers what we are as a part of the creator, as that part of the creative principle that flows through us. That's why I'm, partially against these things. The soul trap thing. I know this person said it, that person said it, but that's stuff they experienced here. And stuff that goes on here through that neuro programming. That's how they're controlling people. Straight up. And I'm telling you, I have yet to encounter one of these soul traps all these other people are talking about in the work, in the regressions or anything. And I've never encountered it until they incarnated here. They incarnated here and boom, those agencies were on them immediately and they knew they were coming. Okay. And then once they get here, it's different then. But when you're in the other you that's choosing where you want to go, where you're incarnated, that's you choosing it. And a lot of times people will come back here because you're not agreeing with yourself. You judge your own self when you go through the panoramic life review. You're your own judge. Okay? That part of you that's still with the creator judges you. And if you didn't do what you agreed to do with your own self, it sends you back. It's a school here. I've said this again and again. I had to change my opinion to fit the facts. A fool changes the facts to fit their opinion. I thought this was for sure a prison planet with recycled souls trapped in the reincarnation cycle. I was sure of it. You know what I mean? But then I started doing the work and that didn't hold up. And believe me, I was trying to make it happen, trying to find what I was thinking must be true. So I'm looking for it constantly, but I couldn't find it. The data wasn't there in the work. I can't help that. Now, when it is, I'll let you know. Not like I've done everybody in the world, so I don't know. But I've done enough that I can tell you that is not the general way of our succession after we leave and all that. It's not the general way that stuff happens with us. And we're much more empowered than we think, period. But that's part of the illusion here, thinking that we're not, and that we're not. We're just anybody's golf ball to be hit around on the course. You know what I mean? When really maybe we're much stronger than that. Anyway, just saying, because at some point we got to start breaking this stigmatism that's coming along with stuff that's keeping. And the reason why I speak against that so much is because it keeps people trapped here. They get scared, and then they be trapped down here, and all that stuff is real. Then they're in misery, living through other people, ruining their lives. That sucks, man. It's not a way for them to live. It's not a way for the person being possessed to live. Period. Anyway, enough of me preaching, eh? They taught me to fly a ship. Yeah, I've heard that many times. Many clients. Cool. Well, hey, I appreciate everybody being here. Yeah, that's pretty common for the people that have these downloads, flying ships and stuff. It's interesting. Hey, I appreciate everybody being here. I'm gonna get out of here. It's been way longer than I thought it would be. But hey, 2 hours, I'll leave it at that. Oh, damn. So much for my hour-long deal. Anyway, much love to everybody. I thank you all being here. Anybody that wants sessions with me or services, please email me at barrylittleton13@gmail.com. I got a couple people I need to get back to. I'm trying to reply within 24 hours. I appreciate all of you being here. I'll try to come do another one real soon, maybe next week again. Thanks, Jessica, for being here and looking out for me again, and every one of you being here. And appreciate you all. And feel free to comment after this is over under there, and I'll try to get back with everybody. And the people that commented last week, I didn't get back to. So I apologize for that. Much love to everybody, and peace.